there it was again. Tiny raised fist, the giggle, single newborn digit pointing at the wall behind me. The bare, empty wall. When the doctor told my girlfriend Kate that our baby was precocious, I had to look the word up in the dictionary, but there's no doubt about it. John was advanced for his age. He was imitating our hand gestures, speaking gibberish months before the nurses, the parenting books, or even the internet said that he should be able to. We took it as a good sign. As a young couple who had never intended to be parents, we needed all the good signs we could get. John's every cry, movement, or rash sent us diving into a bottomless pit of questions. Ones that all boiled down to basically the same thing. Is our baby normal? Is he going to be okay? And compared to the struggles some new parents face, waving at the wall should have been nothing. A non-issue. And it would have been. It would have been if it weren't for the strange events that always happened just before or after John waved. Mishaps, Katie called them, but I preferred impossibilities. How else should I describe a lamp that flings itself across a room, only to shatter against the wall? A Christmas tree that spontaneously catches fire? A shower head that suddenly bursts apart, nearly decapitating our 10-month-old baby? I was afraid that by the time I was able to prove that the bizarre events surrounding our son were more than just coincidences, it would be too late for John. The stranger things got, the harder it became to share what I was going through with Katie. I feared what she would think of my sanity if I told her the letters in my alphabet soup had arranged themselves into the words, dead child. Or if I explained how sometimes when I was driving out in the country with John and I fiddled with the radio, I'd hear a distant voice inside the static screaming, kill the baby, kill the baby, kill the baby, over and over. The first time it happened, I was so horrified that I didn't notice when John waved at something in the trees. If I'd been a millisecond slower stomping on the brake, a stag that was charging madly out of the trees would have killed us both. During the rare moments when in bed together that John's erratic sleep schedule allowed us, I'd lay awake listening to Katie's deep, peaceful snores and wondering if she too had experienced inexplicable things she was afraid to share with me. One thing was clear. It couldn't last. The secrets and constant tension filled our house like a toxic cloud, threatening to destroy our relationship and even jeopardize our ability to care for John. My girlfriend knew that I was trying, talking to psychiatrists, pediatricians, even priests. What Katie didn't know, however, was that I was also considering the services of a psychic. Oddly enough, it was the priest who put me in touch with her. You must understand, Father Keene explained, that we churchmen are all like any other specialized profession. Just as a plumber specializes in pipes, or a carpenter in woodwork, we specialize in bringing souls closer to God. He hesitated then, rubbing the stubble on his jaw like he was having second thoughts about what he was about to tell me. However, there are other professionals, with other specializations. I heard the dry swallow in his throat while he scribbled a phone number on the back of a business card and handed it to me. Elsie Knott, medium, channeler, exorcist, walk-ins only. The only psychics that I'd ever heard of were late-night TV figures with jangly fake jewelry who promised their gullible supporters everything from lottery winnings to a cure for erectile dysfunction. I knew Katie wouldn't approve, but I was at the end of my rope. In fact, in our drive back from my meeting with the priest, John had started pointing and gibbering excitedly at something outside the car, something that only he could see. I gripped the wheel with white knuckles, felt a familiar sense of doom tighten my chest, until I could barely breathe. What was about to happen? I only heard a pop when our right front tire burst, sending us careening to the next lane. Only quick thinking from a semi-truck driver saved us both from a gruesome death. It had to stop. As soon as I attached the spare, I plugged the address from the psychic's office into my GPS. 40 minutes later, we were still driving through the pine trees. Elsie Knott's home office turned out to be a trailer in a forest at the end of a gravel road. Christmas lights and charms swung cheerfully from its redwood deck, and an enormous garden grew around the remnants of a rusted-out VW bug. A dead ring of what I assumed was salted earth circled the property. John giggled and waved at something the moment we got out of the car. My blood ran cold. There was only a few white chickens who'd come clucking over to greet us. I listened to the drone of the cicadas and wondered what the hell I was doing here. Are you going to stand out there staring all day, or come up and say hi? Elsie leaned on the screen door with a tiny fist on her hip. Her short stature, fiery red pixie cut, and floral print dress gave her the look of an angry red-headed Tinkerbell. Face to face with the exorcist, it was clear that she was still a teenager. Elsie Knott was barely as tall as my shoulder, a sickly crimson stain over her apron. I got strawberry jam cooking, so we gotta be snappy about this. Inside Elsie's trailer, all the lamps had tassels. Portraits of Jesus, Elvis, and Johnny Cash lined the walls. A cat clock ticked away the time above the dusty TV, showing reruns of Magnum P.I., and the only deliverance from the sweltering summer heat came from a fly-taped box fan, wheezing away beneath the polyester curtains. This is my grandma's place, she explained. Keeping it this way makes me feel closer to her. She was the longest-lived one of us I'd ever heard of. Made it to 99. They got her while she was gathering mushrooms in the woods out back. Crucifix slipped off of her neck. Elsie swept a pile of magazines off the coffee table, grabbed John out of my surprised hands, and began to flip him around like a slab of bacon. She looked in his eyes, ears, nose, and throat. Off came his onesie and his diaper. Kid's got a rash, hang on. Elsie came back from the kitchen with a cloth and a jar of something that smelled like a spoiled cider. Apple cider vinegar and aloe vera, twice a day. She buttoned my giggling son back up inside his onesie and handed him back to me. That's it? I gaped. What about the way he sees stuff that ain't there? Ellie plopped herself on the huge recliner across from me and crossed her bare feet. Ain't nothing you can do about that. Kid's one of us. Try to protect him like my grandma did for me. You don't seem as smart as grandma, though. Kid probably won't make it past 5, but hey, you can try, right? Protect him from what? Look, the roof needs fixing and I got jam on the stove. You want any more of my time? You gotta have to pay for it. She brought a bright red nail to her lips. 20 ought to do it. Elsie stuffed the crumpled bill that I handed her into her apron, and I followed her to the kitchen, where she carried on with her canning while she talked. Well, for just about all of human history, we've had mediums, channelers, shamans, people affected by things that nobody else can see. Nowadays, there ain't hardly any of us. Now, why do you think that is? Modern science, I began. It's because they killed us all, that's why. Elise's fist went back to her hips. Look, there are things out there that don't want to be seen or even heard of. They recognize us for what we are and they kill us off ASAP. Just like they're trying to do to your son. They're smart, though. Don't want to draw too much attention. That's why they always try to make it look like an accident, unless they get really desperate. John started whimpering. He was getting hungry and needed to get back. I began. Thank you for your time, miss. Don't you want to know how to protect your kid? Elsie demanded. She stormed over to an immense bookshelf that I hadn't noticed and pulled a yellowish scrap of paper. Look, you follow these steps, it'll stop. When it does, though, she jammed a tiny finger into my chest. You owe me $80. What if I don't pay? I joked. Oh, I don't know. Elsie gave me a wry smile. Maybe I'll put a curse on you. All I'm asking is that we try, I pleaded with Katie later that night. The circle of salt I poured around the house had aroused her suspicions. Now she'd caught me nailing an iron horseshoe above the door to John's room. I still had 11 steps to go. Katie snatched the paper from my hand. I can't believe you paid for this garbage. You do realize you had to put that tire on credit, right? We need formula and diapers, not this mumbo-jumbo. Katie must have seen the crestfallen look in my eyes. Her voice softened. But I guess none of this stuff is exactly harmful to babies. You know what? Go for it. 7 days later, I owed Elsie $80. Do we really have to keep all this up? Katie waved the list at me over breakfast, her mouth full of pancakes, on top of everything else we have to do. It's working, isn't it? I replied. John hasn't waved or pointed or babbled in an empty room in almost 2 weeks now. There hasn't been a single freak accident. It's just so much to remember, Katie groaned. And it's so weird. My girlfriend wasn't wrong. As a non-Christian, I wasn't exactly comfortable with both of us wearing crosses all the time, and the house smelled like garlic. It had been really hard to find a silver-bladed pocket knife. The homemade pancakes I cooked up to celebrate our miraculous disaster-free week made breakfast take longer than usual, and Katie was running late for work. Maybe that's why she'd forgotten her necklace on the dresser. It wasn't a simple thing, just 2 pieces of iron held together in a cross shape by a bit of silver wire. But it was one of the more important things on Elsie Knott's list. A sense of foreboding seemed to follow me as I drove John back out to Elsie Knott's trailer to pay my dues and learn more about how to protect my son. Work did it. Elsie was on her hands and knees, weeding her garden in a gigantic straw sun hat that made her look even scrawnier than she was. Told ya. Once again, she stuffed my cash into the pocket of her apron. What's next? There's something I didn't tell you last time. Half because it's not that important till the kid starts going out in the public more often, and half because I didn't want to freak out too much. Elsie wiped her hands off on her apron and took a deep breath. These things, the ones that come from people like John and Grandma and me, they can get inside people who aren't protected. They could use them to hurt your kid. I got another list for you here. She handed me a paper from her apron. You see anybody showing any of the signs around little John here? Kick him to the curb and run, you got it? Elsie tickled John a little, wriggling her nose to make him laugh, then handing him back to me with a meaningful stare. I hope I'll be seeing y'all a lot more as time goes on. That'd mean you're both still alive. There was something sad about Elsie's goodbye wave as we drove out over the protective ring of salt. Katie was leaning against the mailbox when we got home. I wondered if she locked herself out of the house. There's my precious boy, she smiled and ran towards the passenger side window with her arms outstretched. I put the car in park and stepped out as she tugged on the car door handle with increasing ferocity. Honey, I ventured, it's locked. My girlfriend snapped her head towards me, her face twisted in an expression of indescribable hatred. Unlock it then, she snarled. I want to hold my precious baby. There was that word again. Precious. Katie hardly ever used it. I hadn't read all the instruction on Elsie's most recent scrap of paper, but I remembered seeing something about sudden changes in personality being a warning sign. I looked around. Our quiet suburban street was desolate beneath the blazing afternoon sun. It was just me, Katie, and John, who was locked in a hot car. Open the door, honey, Katie insisted. I moved slowly back around to the driver's side. I tried to keep eye contact with Katie while I fumbled with my keys, trying to slip it into the lock without arousing too much suspicion, but Katie's eyes narrowed like a hungry crocodile's. Strange eye color, movement, or shape. Something else from Elsie's list. Open the door, honey, Katie insisted. Okay, I agreed, then slipped inside the car and turned on the ignition. My girlfriend let out an unholy scream and jabbed the butcher's knife she'd been hiding behind her back at our brand new tire. She jumped onto the hood, still shrieking furiously, and went to work on the windshield. A bloody spiderweb cracked across as Katie slammed her forehead onto it, again and again. Wouldn't last much longer. John's crying was deafening in the suffocating space. I unhooked him from his car seat, clutched him to my chest, and covered him with my body as I ran towards the front door of the house. Behind me, I heard the hiss of our kitchen knife being yanked out of the tire. Ah! Smoke rose from Katie's skin as she ran into the ring of salt that I created around our home. My girlfriend flicked her tongue at me like a snake and hissed. The child's mine, Katie snarled in a voice not her own. You know it will happen sooner or later, so I suffer. Give me the child. Fuck you, I panted. We can see to it that you lead a touched and blessed life. The thing inside Katie was all smiles and conciliation now that it was trapped outside the circle. Or we can bring misery to your family for 1,000 generations. You have no idea what we're capable of. My girlfriend paced like a tiger behind the bars, searching for a gap in the salt ring. The child is more trouble than it's worth. If you will but give me this troublesome thing, we can replace it with another, a better one, and bring you fortune beyond your wildest dreams. If not..." The thing inside my girlfriend brought the butcher's knife to its throat, to Katie's throat. "Do you think the authorities will believe any of this when they find your girlfriend's corpse on your lawn?" I hesitated and glanced at John, still screaming his head off on the porch behind me. Elsie had already told me the odds weren't good. Was I prepared to live like this every hour of every day, till my child was inevitably killed? I bent over John and I hugged his tiny, frail body to my chest. I cradled him in my arms as he wailed. "Okay, fine. You win. Just let my girlfriend go." The thing inside Katie flashed me a hideous grin as I passed John across the salt ring and into its waiting arms. The smile vanished when it saw the necklace that I'd taken off and hidden beneath John's blanket when I'd stooped down to pick him up. I looped it around Katie's neck and yanked her towards me across the ring of salt. My girlfriend's eyes rolled into the back of her head. She crumpled to the ground, convulsing, and I barely managed to snatch John as he fell from her arms. "Ooh. What happened?" Katie stammered, clutching her forehead. John had stopped crying. He was staring at the space where Katie had been standing. If I squinted my eyes, I could barely make out a horrible, distorted shadow clawing at the air in fury. But it was blurry and quick to fade. By the time I helped Katie to her feet, it seemed to have vanished completely. Until John giggled, pointed at the empty air, and waved. Hey guys, it's still hot out. Like, unreasonably hot out. And you know what's great when it's unreasonably hot out? Iced tea. So if you guys like iced tea, check out Ivory Monocle Tea. That's my wife's loose leaf tea thing she does on Etsy. Etsy.com/shop/Ivory Monocle Tea. You can get a whole bunch of different kinds of teas on there. They can be made hot if you're insane, or they could be made cold if you live anywhere near the equator. So check out Etsy.com/shop/Ivory Monocle Tea, and you can get a whole bunch of different kinds of teas, from the fruity kind to the caffeinated kind to the kind that's named after creepypasta things, even one that's named after me, My Dark and Stormy Night. And if you ask, when you order that tea, you can get a little MCP dabbing sticker along with it. Oh, also, I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but I sign all the cards if they're like horror-related teas. So if you ever wanted that, check that out. That's the only place you can get it now. So yeah, check it out. Etsy.com/shop/Ivory Monocle Tea. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. Thank you so much. A very big thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Stephanie Butler, Reaper61167, Bobby Karman, Tristain, Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Thiccy McQuicky, SamaHigh, CrusaderChocobo, SpookyShel, Atomaurus, Grand Moth the Milky, Big Smoke 369, Captain Scurvy, SaltyIrishPoet, Estebean, Brayden Morris, Nate Kuhl, HorrorFan1212, Hour Minute Second Time, Kyle Reznak, David Martin, Scare-ington the Unkempt, Robert Malcolm, Angelus, Spanky, Snoochie Boochie, Seclude, Lupita Galvin, That Creepy Chick, Tyler Fletcher, Merxenum, Red Shadow Cat, Xavier the Cheyenne, Demix, Sean Cadieu-baker, 6 Gay Rats in a Trenchcoat, Turtleman, Rob Like Sharp Things, Cryolinian, Xavier Graphius, Lord Life's Best, Goring Tramagasi, Maria Walker, Emily Mitchell, Crazy Kid, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Eka Limchok, Dirt Diver 030, Matt Bach, Voice of Sand, Coffee Zombie, Hidden Tiger, Shelly J, Jeremy H, Secamel, Nana, Deleted Account, Melted Lake, Tali Sue, William King, Darth Miver, Michael Ortiz, Titanic Aries, Bardo Hawk 764, Lambda M98, Harley, Sashi Suzaku, Cronut 509, Kaylee Ambrose, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Benjamin Welvert, Cryptic Nightmares, Kiri the Sloth, Fester's Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. As always, thank you guys so much, because you guys help me do everything that I do here. You guys help pay authors for stories and commission stories and do everything that I can do to make this channel and make this podcast the best it could possibly be. So thank you all for supporting me here. And as always, everyone, sweet dreams.